Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome to the Gathering of Eagles stage, General Rhonda Cornum.
Thanks. Well, here's an opportunity you need to learn to pre-op stuff. He doesn't work at Biloxi anymore. And in fact, went from there to be the AMC command surgeon, and recently also retired. And so now I spend my time between Colorado and Kentucky, you know, the heavens of the earth. This is a great opportunity, and it is always fun to, it is a lot more fun to be on the stage than it was sitting in those chairs. I gotta tell you that. When I said I really want to go to Air Command and Staff College, not go to Fort Leavenworth, because you know, my family is staying in Florida and I can go home on the weekends. They said, you can't go. I said, well, why not? You know, you let other Army officers go. And they said, well, because you're a doctor. I said, well, that, you know, yes, I am. They said, well, you don't know enough Army. I couldn't believe they told me this. You know, I just got released. I had just gotten off crutches. You don't know enough about the Army to represent the Army at ACSC. And I said, I assure you, I know as much Army as any Air Force guy wants to know. So it worked out okay. This picture, so what I'm hoping, you know, you just heard the God's eye view of Desert Storm and Desert Shield. Somebody who knew everything that was happening at every level, and I got to tell you, I was not that level. I was the Iron Major. So this is going to be a little more of the worm's eye view of going to war. And I'm glad he thinks everything got where it's supposed to go, and it all did get to some warehouse, at which point I would take a Humvee and go to the warehouse and look up and down the shelves, because if you ordered it, it never came. So that was the doctor's view of things anyway. Okay. So, but anyway, this picture, I am indefatigably optimistic. But I did get tired of the glass is half full, the glass is half empty analogy. So I took this because I think on any given day, the world is always half light and half dark. That's how, you know, the universe works. And so you can choose to either focus on the dark part of your life or the light, and I choose to focus on the light. So I went to Desert Shield, like the first week it happened, or actually probably the second week, because the first week we were waiting in line for one of those airlift things to go. So I went with the 229th Attack Helicopter Squadron, and I was the flight surgeon. So I had me and my 5 medics. We were, you know, that was it. And 375 guys and a bunch of helicopters, and a bunch of Apaches and a few Blackhawks and some OH-58s. So we went there, and there we were. My spousal unit went also with the 33rd. And I just got to tell you, if you joined the military for lifestyle and you joined the Air Force, you made the right choice. I went to his place in Tabuk a few times, and I'll just tell you, I couldn't believe they thought they were at war. So Desert Shield, it was really busy if you were in Riyadh, maybe. But for the average guy who gets there, it was really waiting. 5 months of waiting. 5 months of waiting without all the things you have at home, like TVs and radios and all the stuff. So you really, boredom was a problem. So training was important, and we did a lot of that. And we did a lot of, we extracted a lot of, you know, nobody got shot down in the first few months, but there were a lot of airplane, or at least a lot of helicopter wrecks, because people were not used to landing in a place where it turned into a big snowstorm every time you got close to the ground. So we did a lot of, actually, we were the first responders to several aircraft accidents and did a lot of extractions, and we had all this stuff. We were pretty good at it by this time. I was not part of a medevac unit in any way. I was just a doctor to take care of our battalion. But I did do some fun things. We built a lot of stuff. We built little hooches inside the parking garage where we were tasked to live for the first 3 or 4 months. And I went to a store in downtown Tehran, and what I learned from that experience and have carried on is that what we think about the Arabs is probably just as inaccurate as what they think about us. So, but this guy did, he's the owner of the store, and he did, I went in to buy a saw so we could, you know, build our little beds and cabinets and whatever. And I was the first woman to ever walk in that store and buy a saw. So we became friends. He invited our whole battalion staff to dinner. I thought he didn't want me, so I was going to drop them off and pick them up later. I said, no, you come. Okay. So they're really not quite as prejudiced against women as we certainly thought in the 90s. And I've been back several times since then, and it's really, if our media is as inaccurate about everything else as they are about the Middle East, just turn your TV off. This is a lesson in leadership, actually. This is a lesson in not lying to people. And there's a lot of lessons. So we get out there, and once again, now we're deployed to the desert. This is like in January, waiting for the big war to start. And so we get there, and one day, the colonel comes in and he says at our staff meeting, you have to put up the camouflage. Now, they don't have a single airplane flying out of Iraq. So who is going to see us except ourselves? And it's camouflage from Europe. It's green. That's 2. 3 is you'll notice that the $1 million aircraft are not camouflaged, just our tents that we're going to abandon there anyway. And 4, if you'll look, we have purposefully built all these little rock formations and walkways, and it says on the ground 229th, so that our friends can see it from the air and land. So I said, sir, why? And he said, sit down, shut up, you're a doctor. Yes, sir. So I went back to my little tent hospital of 2 tents and 5 guys, and I said, we got to put up the camouflage. And they said, ma'am, why? And I said, because the colonel said so. I said, and I really can't give you a better answer than that, but let's just do it quickly and efficiently, and we can get back to playing spades. So the point is, my real point is, you're gonna sometimes have to do stuff just because it's a rule, or just because somebody said. But don't try to make it into more than that. Just admit that, okay, it's a dumb thing, and if I'm ever that colonel, we're not gonna do it. But until then, don't lie to the people below you, because they will look at very clearly, they'll know that's not true. And if they'll lie to me about that, they'll lie to me about something else. So just don't lie to people. There's my little tent hospital with my camouflage very clearly up. This is Corey going to war. This is Tabuk. This had the marble pool, the basketball court. It had the little guy who used to come to his room and say, what kind of crepes would you like this morning, sir? I couldn't believe it. This is the 33rd Fighter Wing, deployed at the pool. Now, yesterday we heard from the guy who dropped the first bomb, and there with the shades on and the white body that's trying to get tan is B.J. Kelk, who had the first air-to-air MiG kill. So we have a lot of firsts, and so I have to say from this picture, what did I learn? You don't need to practice to be miserable. It will just happen if it does. And there's no big glory. So, I would have sat by the pool if we'd had one too. Although most guys in the Army wouldn't have. They would have just guarded it and kept people out of it. Let's just be, but the Marines would have filled it in, so. I was in the military a long time. Okay, so this was our Christmas card picture that year. So it was a good picture, and in fact, it was the only negative feedback I ever got. This picture was in the book. And I got really good feedback from the book, except for this one guy who wrote to me and said that was unprofessional to have 2 people with rifles on the thing of a jet. I said, well, okay, thanks. It's a good picture, though. Okay, so my unit was very successful, by the way. We took pictures of all the stuff we were supposed to. We blew up all the stuff we were supposed to. We captured people when we weren't supposed to, but we didn't know what else to do with them. We couldn't leave them there. So just checking the time, since they don't have a clock on the back wall. So we were feeling really good about ourselves. We were feeling really successful. So we're up there, after we've hauled back the prisoners, we're collecting all the contraband. And there's a lot of museums now that have all the stuff we hauled back. I think it was a lot looser about hauling stuff back in the old days. We hauled back good stuff, more good stuff. That sort of thing is what shut us down. And we were all successful. The war was successful. Let's be clear about that. So everybody was feeling pretty hooah and maybe a little overconfident. And this is the last surviving picture of my poor Black Hawk. I remember one time, and somebody said yesterday the most exciting thing is getting shot at and missed. And so he's absolutely right. So a couple times we did get shot at as we were doing little missions. And I remember one time one of the pilots called back and said, return fire, return fire. And I'm on the door gun, and I said, what do you think we're doing back here? So it is exciting, actually. On our last mission, these two pilots, Phil Garvey and Bob Godfrey, and Phil had been a Vietnam pilot, and he volunteered to go to the war. We didn't have a full-up unit at the time, and so people had to volunteer, and he was an instructor at Rucker, and he volunteered to go. He says, if I go, somebody with young kids won't have to, and he was a great pilot, and he went. The other guy was not so old and had not been to Vietnam, and he really, like everybody else, wanted a chance to go to the war. But he said, you can't tell my wife I volunteered. You have to tell her I just got orders, and they made me go. Well, I wasn't going to lie to anybody, but I wasn't going to go to this guy's house and tell him, your husband just lied to you. I mean, I just, hooah. So unfortunately, they were both killed in Iraq. And so yes, Phil's family grieved and was sad, but took comfort in the fact that they knew that he had died doing something he wanted to do, thought was important, and had volunteered to do. The other guy's family, they hated us. They hated the Army. They said, you stole my husband, you made him go. And they grieved, I'm sure, but they were hateful and angry, and there's no comfort there. And so my point is, because those are not the only, that's not the last guy I know who ever did that. I know a lot of people who over the years since have done the same sort of thing, that they have volunteered because they really want to go. Well, my point would be, you need to solve the relationship issue that you don't trust the person who's supposedly the most important person in your life to tell the truth. That's a big problem. So I would recommend fix that one, because it would have been a bad problem to be in jail with nothing to do but think and realize that I had left lying. I would not want to have been in that position. Well, you saw some battle damage that was fixable yesterday. I got to tell you, when you blow the tail boom off your aircraft, it's not fixable. So on the 27th of, I'm going to see if this is the back. We'll move it backwards one. Can you move my slide back one? There we go. So on 27th, we were moving up, and it was obvious to everybody the war was going to be over soon, because if they didn't call it off, we were going to all end up in Baghdad, and we didn't want to be there. So we were just moving wherever they told us to go. And a call came in on the radio. I was in the aircraft, and we were going through the line, forward area fuel point. And a call came on the radio from our Tactical Operations Center, said, do you have Doc Cornum on board? And Phil said, yep, I got the doc on board. That can mean one of several things. It could mean somebody was hurt, we got to go do something, and it could mean somebody found pizza, So he said, do you have all her stuff? Because I had all the stuff for extractions and resuscitation, and I had everything. I was a mini little trauma center. So he said, yeah, we got all her stuff in the back. And he said, great, because an F-16 pilot has been shot down. He is on his emergency radio. He's got a broken leg. We know his coordinates, and we are the only helicopter unit anywhere near him. Will you guys go get him? Now, as it turned out later, there's a lot of story to that, like a few other units had said, no, we won't, but I didn't know that. So we said, of course we'll go get him. What a cool mission is that? Of course. So we got the coordinates, and we found 2 Apaches that also had gas, and we put together this little plan that the Apaches, will go out and we'll whop out and get this guy, and they'll provide air cover, and we will land, and we'll take some pathfinders, those infantry guys who can E&E really well and know where they are, and we'll get out there, and I'll put a splint on him, and we'll put him on a stretcher, and we'll get him on the aircraft, and we'll all go home, and we'll feel like heroes. That was the plan. We started executing that plan. We whop out there, and didn't have any intel about where we were going other than the coordinates. It wasn't a place we had gone before. And you always hope those Air Force guys will eject someplace far away from whatever shot them. Hope, I learned, is not a method, however. So as we got closer, we got more little bitching Betty on the thing saying, radar's watching, radar's watching. The little electric lady, but that little electric lady been saying that for a week. So we didn't think too much about that. And we're going in very low, and trying to sneak in, and all of a sudden, man, we were about, I don't know, a kilometer from where we thought this guy was, and the ground just opened up and started firing everything they had at us. Because as it turned out, he had fallen right into the middle of the biggest ammunition supply point in southern Iraq. So it's pretty well defended, and it resulted in that. So as we're crashing, which you can tell you are crashing, when you lose control of your aircraft, I thought, I'm way lower than this room, so you don't have a lot of time to think. Those people that say their life goes in front of their eyes, they must start at 30,000 feet. Start at 15, there's not much time. So I remember thinking, as I'm crashing, I am going to die right here, which, that's not a great thought, but my next one was, but at least I'm dying doing something honorable. My grandfather had been a Marine in World War II, and he'd been a Kentucky backwoods guy, and he really felt honor was important. And so I had heard a long time, there's worse things than dying, Rhonda. There's living with dishonor. So, okay, at least I'm not dying doing something stupid. And so then, splat. Now, I don't know how long I was knocked out, and while I was on active duty, I never admitted it at all, because then I wouldn't have gotten back on flight status. But what I do know, it was light when we crashed, and it was really dark when I came to, so I'm guessing it was a couple hours. So I kind of wake up, and I have one of these out-of-body experiences. I'm looking down at myself. I'm laying there. There's a piece of wrecked helicopter on top of me, and I'm thinking, well, my last thought was, I'm dying. I said, okay, well, I'm dead. I don't know what I think dead's like, but I'm not sure this was it. And then, happily, I saw a flame. Now, I'm sure, in retrospect, I've been over there since, that it was one of those oil well things they light so that the excess stuff burns off. But I thought at the time, I didn't know what it was, but I said, well, I don't know if I'm dead or not. But if I'm not dead, I'm not just going to lie here and die in a post-crash fire. So I'm going to try moving, and if that works, that's good. And if it doesn't, I'm dead. So I did. I pushed myself out from under this piece of wreck, and I tried to stand up, and I couldn't stand up, and I tried to turn over. I couldn't even do that. So I didn't know what was wrong with me, but obviously something. And I tried again, and by this time, I must have convinced by moving that the bad guys I wasn't dead either, because by the time I tried the second time, there were 5 guys with guns pointed at my head. I'm not dead. So but I was obviously a prisoner. Now, being a prisoner is not any better. Well, it's better than being dead. It's not a great thought either, but it was better than being dead. So when I looked at my choices, being a POW was the only one I saw, and so that was okay. There I was. So this one guy reaches down and grabs me by my right arm and stands me up, which dislocated my already broken right arm, which was really gross, and it hurt a lot. And so I'm standing there, and they take off your helmet and your flak jacket, and they take your gun. And obviously you can't shoot. Even if you wanted to try to be a hero like the guy said yesterday I didn't try to do, you're not going to shoot the guys with 5 rifles with your 9mm. So, but when you can't get it out of your holster, you're really not going to do that. So I'm standing there, and I take sort of stock, and so there's this arm that goes to about here, and goes down. I look over here, and I get this one doing the exact same thing. And then I've got my flight suit on, so I've got, I've got tight wrists because, of course, if there is a fire, you got your Nomex thing, you're being safe. And I thought, oh, this is going to be really gross, because I couldn't move my fingers, I couldn't feel anything, and I thought, there's probably severed in there when the thing fell on me, and the only reason they're still stuck in the sleeves is because the wrists are tight, and so they're going to take the Velcro off, my arms are going to fall out. Now, I have seen that. I did the trauma service in Washington, too, and I saw them bringing a guy on one stretcher and his legs on the other, and I said, ugh, I don't think I'm going to tolerate that well on myself. And pride is one of those things in the military we take seriously. And, throwing up on the enemy just really didn't sound like it was going to get me any cool points. So I remember standing there, and they're yelling and doing whatever they're doing. Took my camera, and they even stole my wedding ring off my neck. And then my fingers started moving, and I remember being so grateful. I thought, wow, if the fingers are moving after this many hours, then surely there's enough blood and enough nerves that they can eventually get fixed. So I was pretty happy about that. And, you got to be grateful for something, and that was what I could find at the time. So then they started the interrogation process, which I got to tell you, people, it is way better to be shot down on the last day of the war. because, I mean, they knew they were losing. We had not called it off quite yet, but they knew they were losing. And so their incentive to get information from us was a lot less than it had been for poor Warrant Officer Hunter. So we got interrogated, and I just thought it was funny. We drug down into a bunker. It was probably the lieutenant, and he looks at me, and he says, "Who are you?" And first of all, my name's written on my shirt. I said, "I am Major Rhonda Cornum." And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I didn't really, I'm thinking about the code of conduct, and I'm thinking I'm not supposed to say anything except my name, my social security number. On the other hand, I do have a wrecked helicopter in this guy's bunker. I said, I had a helicopter wreck. I figured I was not giving away any state secrets, And I didn't tell him that, we were on a search and rescue mission. I was still hoping that the other guy had gotten away. But I was not going to deny that this thing was sitting in his, base camp either. So he made the intelligent move, take her someplace else. So the guys dragged me out and took me to the next bunker. And there's the captain who kind of says the same thing. "What unit are you with?" And I'm wearing my 2nd of the 229th Attack Helicopters. I got the Flying Tiger. I got my little Apache pin. I got all this stuff. I'm with the 229th. And that was so then they took me to the third place eventually where somebody could make a decision. But in the meantime, I would say the most anxiety-provoking thing that did happened then, which was I get drug out of that place. And by this time, I haven't seen another American. I think I'm the only person who survived this wreck, for which I was grateful and a little sad. So this group of Iraqi guys stand around, and they throw me in the middle of this group. And of course, you got 2 broken arms and a knee by now that you recognized is unstable. I was happy I didn't do a whole face plant. I just fell on my knees. And as I put my head up, I saw across from me, already tied up, Sergeant Troy Dunlap. Now, he was one of the pathfinders on my wreck. And I got to tell you, I was never so happy to see anybody. And I had never probably said more than perhaps, "Good morning, Sergeant Dunlap," to this guy in 6 months. He was never sick, and he was one of the pathfinders, and he was enlisted, and he wasn't a medic, and he was 20, not 30, and so I really never had any particular. I didn't know